Hi guys, and welcome to my Doctor Who DVD collection for June 2017. Yes, it's been a hell of a long time since I've did my last collection video. I think the last one I did was in 2015, but that was of my classic Doctor Who DVD collection. But now I'm going to do the entire thing, and as you can see, I've got quite a bit more since then. So without any further ado, I'm going to go and give you sort of my thoughts on each one, like brief sort of opinions. And so yeah, let's begin with William Hartnell. And here we have An Unearthly Child. The first episode is absolutely fantastic. The other three episodes are a little bit shit because it's just all about trying to make fire. But overall, it's an alright story. It's just worth watching for the first episode, really. Then we have one of my favourite Dalek stories and one of my favourite William Hartnell stories, the Daleks. Great introduction to the Daleks, and it's pretty much what kicked Doctor Who off. And it's a great Dalek story, even though there is a little bit of padding in between like the episodes. But you know, it's to be expected. It's 7 parts long. Then we have the underrated, The Edge of Destruction, which is a really nice 2-part story, which I quite like. I know a lot of people don't like it. But I'm one of the people that actually think it's a pretty good story, so yeah, that's why I like it. Then we have the loose cannon reconstruction of Marco Polo. Haven't had a chance to watch this yet. I haven't watched all of the reconstructions that I've recently picked up. But yes, I've heard it's meant to be quite good, and I'm looking forward to watching it. Then we've got the Aztecs, which is signed by William Russell. One of William Hartnell's best, and one of my favourites that he did. And probably one of the best historical stories. Yeah, just a really, really good story, I think. Then we've got The Planet of Giants, which is quite an ambitious story. I think it was originally meant to be 4 parts long, but they had to cut some stuff out or whatever. I haven't really researched it that well, but yeah, it's alright. Not the best story, but yeah, it's just alright. Then we've got The Dalek Invasion of Earth, which I think is one of the most overrated Doctor Who stories of all time. Not really one of my favourites, one of my least favourite Dalek stories. It could have been 2 episodes shorter, like, it could have been a really good 4-part story. It just drags in the middle, I find. It's not needed. Then we have the underrated Space Museum, which I think is a really clever story, but I don't think the writer got enough time to flesh out his ideas, as the sort of overall conclusion was a little bit lazy. And yeah, it could have been a good 5-part story or a 6-parter. It's a shame, really, because I was really enjoying that story until the end. Then we have the incredibly comedic Dalek story, which is The Chase. A lot of people don't like it because of how silly it is, but when I first watched it, I was, pissing myself laughing because I thought it was just hilarious. I know I shouldn't really be laughing, but the comedy elements don't help the matter. It's alright, not one of the best Dalek stories, although the mechanoids are pretty cool. Mission to the Unknown, which it's actually just a solid 25-minute episode. It's just one episode. Doesn't feature the Doctor at all. It's a reconstruction again. And yeah, it's actually pretty decent for how short it is. It's the prequel to the epic, which is the Daleks Master Plan, the 12-part epic, or technically it's 11 parts, because to be honest, The Feast of Stephen is utter shit. If you watched it, you'll know just how bad it is, because it's just a filler. They thought, shit, right, we gotta do a Christmas special because it crosses over with Christmas, and yeah, it's pretty bad. So technically it's 11 parts because The Feast of Stephen is just horrendously awful. Then we've got The Massacre. I haven't watched this one yet. As you can see, it's got a PlayStation 2 Platinum sticker on it, because it's just from a PlayStation 2 case. I've just swapped it around to match with the rest. Yeah, I haven't watched it. I've heard it's meant to be really good. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to watching it, so I might review it one day, who knows. The Celestial Toymaker, a really good story, really enjoy this one, really clever ideas, and the Celestial Toymaker is just a really great Doctor Who villain. The Savages. I need to watch this one. I've heard it's not the best, and I've heard some people say it's really good. So it seems like it's a bit of a Marmite story, this one. But yeah, I'll try and watch it eventually because obviously I'm a bit busy with college work at the moment. And we've got the Gunfighters, which a lot of people don't like, but I don't mind it. I think it's alright. It's not a great story by any means, but you know, it's okay. It's what it is, really. It's just a really weird, odd historical story. But yeah, the War Machines, really good story. This one. I think the War Machines themselves are really cool, and there's some great direction in this as well. And I think one of the actors who was in the War Machines, I think his son was the recent sort of TARDIS designer, the Matt Smith TARDIS designer, you know, the current one. Obviously it's been changed a little bit, but yeah, they think the designer, his father, was in the War Machines, I think. I might be wrong, but I sort of watched a video somewhere, or read somewhere that this guy's father was in the War Machines, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, it's a really good story. A really crap ending for Dodo. Yeah, she just disappears halfway through the story. It's really bizarre, but yeah, other than that, fantastic story. Really, really enjoy it. And here we've got the Lost in Time box set, which is signed by Deborah Watling. Yeah, basically, it's got loads of missing clips and surviving episodes which are on here. It's a little bit outdated now because obviously we've got the Web of Fear and the Enemy of the World. But yeah, it's a great box set, loads of different clips and stuff, but it's a little bit pointless now that I've got some of the recons. But yeah, it's nice because obviously I've got this absolutely, well, years ago really. But yeah, it's a good box set, and it's pretty essential for your Doctor Who collection, really. Okay, so now we're moving on to the Patrick Troughton years, and we'll start, sorry, I've missed one here. So yeah, Power of the Daleks, a fantastic story. Given the amount of time they had to do the animation in, because they had to do it before the story's 50th anniversary, it's pretty impressive, considering the amount of time they had. But there is a couple of errors in there, and a couple of balls ups. But other than that, I think it's a pretty decent animation, and the story itself is one of the best Dalek stories ever. I've read the book as well, and that is absolutely fantastic, and I've reviewed it as well. So if you want to check that out, please do. We've also got the Moonbase, a great Sidemen story. I think it's I think the animation is absolutely fantastic when they're walking on the moon. It just looks so cool, and it's just a great Sidemen story. If you haven't watched it and you're a fan of the Sidemen, definitely pick this one up. I think it's absolutely wonderful. Then we have the really underrated Faceless Ones. I absolutely adore this story. I wish it would get found, because if it does, if it will, then I think it will be really appreciated, and I think a lot of people will love it. It's just a shame that only a few episodes exist. I would love the story to be found, and I really want people to go out and listen to the audio, watch the recon. It's just a really good story, and I wish people would appreciate it a little bit more. So yeah, Faceless Ones, great story. Then we have my second favourite story of all time, The Evil of the Daleks, debuting I think my favourite companion, Victoria Warfield. It's her first story, and it features the Dalek Emperor. 7 episodes long, only episode 2 exists, which is excellent, really good episode. I just wish the rest will get found. It's pretty unlikely that it will. But I just wish the whole thing would get found. When they found the Enemy of the World, the entirety of it, and I wish this would get found, because I'll be a very happy Doctor Who fan, and I'm sure a lot of other people will as well. So yeah, great story that. And we've got the Tomb of the Sidemen, again signed by Deborah Watling. Yeah, great Sidemen story. I've heard a few people say it's overrated. I can see why. It's a bit cliche to say that. Oh yeah, Tomb of the Sidemen is my favourite Sidemen story. It is a great story, don't get me wrong, but yeah, it's a brilliant story. But I do agree to an extent that it's a little bit overrated. The Ice Warriors, I don't know, it's average. It's not as good as The Seeds of Death, because that is, in my opinion, the best Ice Warrior story. I'd say it's better than the Monster Repeller though. But yeah, not the best Ice Warrior story, I don't think. Even though it's the first one. Then we've got the Enemy of the World, which I'm glad, because before this got found, everyone thought that the Web of Fear was fantastic, and the general consensus was that everybody thought this was shit. But now it's got found again, loads of people love it, which is great, and I'm one of those people that think it's an absolutely fantastic story, and for some people it's their favourite story of all time, so that's pretty cool. Then we have one of my favourite Doctor Who stories, and that is Fury from the Deep, which is Victoria Warfield's last story. Yeah, excellent story, really creepy seaweed monsters, really atmospheric, and just a fantastic base under siege story, and one of the best Patrick Troughton stories, and one of the best Doctor Who stories. I could go on forever complimenting this story, because it is just genius. I have the audiobook as well, which is also great, which is read by David Troughton. I've also got the Web of Fear as well, but that's actually downloaded on an iPad. So technically I've got it, but I just didn't have it on DVD yet. And also we have The Mind Robber, which is a really clever 5-part story. It's a bit mindfuckery in places, but it's an absolutely brilliant story, and I really like that cover design. It's really different from a lot of Doctor Who DVD releases, but yes, a great story, highly recommended if you're a Second Doctor fan. Just a really cool 5-part story, really. Really enjoy it. Then we have the Magnificent, The Invasion, also featuring Kevin Stoney, who also appeared in the Daleks Master Plan, playing Marvick Chen. And here he plays a character in Legions with the Sidemen. The Sidemen are sort of sidelined a little bit, but I think overall it's a brilliant story, and again, it also features Nicholas Courtney, who was also in the Daleks Master Plan, playing Brett Kingdom. And yeah, great story. One of my favourite Doctor Who stories ever. Just fantastic. Then we have The Seeds of Death. One of my favourite Patrick Troughton stories, and I think it's one of his best. And my favourite Ice Warrior story. So yeah, absolutely stellar. Really, really good story. And I just think it's a really good 6-part serial. It's one of those stories that I really need to get around to watching again, because I've only watched it once, and on that first viewing I absolutely loved it. I've also got the War Games as well, but that's part of the Regeneration box set, which is down there, and that's a great story again. That's one that I really, really enjoy, and I think it's an absolute classic. So yes, now we move on to John Pertwee. Okay, so John Pertwee now, and for those of you who don't know, John Pertwee is my favourite Doctor, and so yeah, I've pretty much got all of his stories. I don't have the DVD release for Planet of the Spiders, but that's part of the Regeneration box set. So yes, we've got Spearhead from Space, which is one of my favourite stories, and probably one of the best debuts for a Doctor. And yeah, it's just one of John Pertwee's best, I think, and I'm really thinking about buying the Blu-ray of it as well. And then we've got Spearhead from Space Special Edition. Picture quality is slightly better, but yeah, I picked up the original quite recently, because yeah, for some reason I quite like the cover, and it's only £2.50, so can't go wrong really. And then you got the Doctor and the Silurians, a fantastic 7-part story, and even though the music is a bit bad, it's still a brilliant story, and the Silurians are great in it as well, even if the design is a little bit clunky, but it's better than the new series design. Then we've got the Ambassadors of Death, which is actually a really underrated John Pertwee story, and it's probably the weakest out of season 7, but I think it's actually one of the best from that season. Well, I mean, to be honest, that season is absolutely fantastic, and I think it's really, really good. So yeah, that's the Ambassadors of Death. Now I've got Inferno, which is signed by John Levine, which I met at Cardiff Comic Con, and yeah, it's my favourite Doctor Who story of all time. Really good, excellent story. If you haven't watched this and you've and you're a fan of Jon Pertwee, then yeah, this is one that you have to watch. It's absolutely stellar. I don't really find anything. I haven't found anything wrong with it really. Now I move on to season 8, and this features the debut of my favourite master, which is Roger Delgado, and it's Terror of the Autons, and it's a really great story. Watched it recently, and yeah, I really enjoy it. It's a really nice, light-hearted, fast-paced Doctor Who story. If you're a fan of the Autons, then yeah, definitely watch this. It's not as good as Spearhead, but no, it's still really, really good. Then we've got the underrated Mind of Evil, which I think it's an absolute classic, and one of my favourite Jon Pertwee stories. It's in my top 10. I've done a top 10 Jon Pertwee stories video, so if you want to check that out, please do. So yeah, that's the Mind of Evil. Then we've got the Calls of Axos, which is still one of my favourites. It's alright, it's not the best, but it's still, you know, enjoyable. Colony in Space, probably one of my least favourite Jon Pertwee stories, but it's alright, you know, it's not bad. Then we've got the Daemons, which is Jon Pertwee's favourite story that he did. And yeah, I can see why. It's an absolutely brilliant story, and there's so many good moments in it, and Roger Delgado is brilliant as ever. It's one that I highly recommend you check out. Day of the Daleks. This one's quite underrated. One of the most underrated Dalek stories, which a lot of the Pertwee Dalek stories are pretty underrated. Yeah, really like this. The original, well, the special edition is a lot better than the original, because the Dalek voices weren't good in the original version. And here in the special edition, they are Nicholas Briggs doing the Dalek voices, which is really cool, and there's some more special effects in there as well, which is always nice. Then we've got the Curse of Peladon. Lovely story, this one. This one I really enjoy, and it's still one of my favourite Pertwees, because I think it's just a great story. Yeah, in my top 10 now, the Sea Devils, absolutely fantastic. Really enjoy this one. The Sea Devils, I love their design, and it's just a really good 6-part story, and one of the best master stories as well. The Mutants, not the best really. It's a bit average. It's not one of my favourites. It's probably one of my least favourite ones again, but it's okay. We have the Three Doctors, which I think is a little bit overrated. Not one of my favourite stories, but there's some really good elements in it, like Omega is great, and there's some great comedic elements to it as well. A nice Beatles reference, and yeah, just a little bit overrated, and the Jail Guards I don't think are that good either. But yeah, quite a nice story to watch if you're bored, but yeah, not one of my favourites. And we've got the Carnival of Monsters, which yeah, it's probably my least favourite Pertwee story. I don't think it's that good, really. I know a lot of people don't really like this one a lot, but yeah. Frontier in Space, brilliant story, this one. Absolutely love it. Really, really good story, and Roger Delgado was one of his best performances, and it's his last story as well. And there's a great cliffhanger too, and it's just absolutely brilliant. And we've got Planet of the Daleks, which I think is extremely underrated. Which is a shame, because I absolutely adore this story, and I think it's amazing. So yeah, go and check it out. We've got the Green Death special edition, which yes, great story and a great departure for Joe Grant, who's one of my favourite companions, and I really love that outfit that Jon Pertwee wore for this season. It's one of my favourite costumes for the Doctor, really. It's such a really cool outfit, and it's a great story as well. And we have the definitive Sontaran story, the Time Warrior, absolute classic, and one of the first ones I got. And yeah, just a really solid, just a really fantastic story, and it's one of my favourites of the Pertwee era. And the Sontarans are my favourite Doctor Who villains. I think they're awesome. And we have the Invasion of the Dinosaurs, probably one of the most underrated Doctor Who stories of all time. And yeah, the dinosaurs just look friendly, and I don't really like how Mike Yates' turn went bad, but yeah, it's not the best Pertwee story, and probably the weakest from this season. And yeah, like I said, I do have Planet of the Spiders, which I do think is a really great story. Not one of my favourites, but just a really good story for John Pertwee. I should have said this afterwards, but never mind. So we've got Death to the Daleks, which one of my favourite Dalek stories again. Really love this one. I think it's just a great story, and I know a lot of people don't really appreciate it that much, but you know, what can you do? I think it's a fantastic story. Really enjoy it. And then we've got The Monster of Peladon, which is probably the weakest Ice Warrior story. It's not the best, quite political. It does drag quite a lot. But yeah, it's not one of my favourites, and I just don't enjoy it for some reason. I don't think the script is that good, and Curse of Peladon's a lot better. The Seeds of Death is the best one, I think, in my opinion. The Seeds of Death is the best Ice Warrior story. I just don't enjoy this one. I don't know, it's just not the best, I don't think. So yes, now let's move on to the Tom Baker years. Yes, now we move on to the Tom Baker years now. To be honest, he's not really one of my favourite Doctors, but I do love a lot of his stories. I know there are a lot of people that love Tom Baker, because they pretty much see him as Doctor Who. But yeah, personally he's not ranked highly on my list, but like I said, I love a lot of his stories, and unfortunately I don't even have his first one, which is Robot. I will pick it up someday, but I just don't have it at the moment. But yes, we've got The Ark in Space, which is an excellent story, really, really good. It feels like Tom Baker's always been playing the Doctor, really, and yeah, it's a special edition version, and I really do like that cover design. Really good story. And we've got the Sontaran Experiment, which I really love this story. I think it's one of my favourite Sontaran stories. I like all of the Sontaran stories, really, even the Invasion of Time, which I know a lot of people don't like. But it's a really nice, quick 2-part story, this one, and pretty underrated as well. Then we have the almighty Genesis of the Daleks, which in a lot of people's eyes is seen as the best Doctor Who story of all time. I can see why. It is brilliant. Michael Wisher as Davros is fantastic, and there's so many good things about the story, but one of the problems that I do have with it is that I think the Daleks should have been in it a lot more, but because it's really the sort of focus on Davros, really, and it should have been called, like, I don't know, the Genesis of Davros, but I guess they had to say Genesis of the Daleks to get people watching it, because everyone loves the Daleks, so yeah. But yeah, it's the first classic Doctor Who DVD I ever bought, so yeah, that's cool. Revenge of the Sidemen, extremely underrated. There's quite a few bloopers and stuff in it, a couple of errors, and the Sidemen are a bit shit in it, although I do really love the design of the Sidemen from this story. I used to have the action figures for them, but I sold them eventually. Then we've got one of my favourite stories, Terror of the Zygons, the last Tom Baker DVD to be released. I don't know why it took so long. Maybe it's because of the special features. They wanted to make it a really special release, and I think Babel Colour actually did the cover design for this, which is really cool, and it's a great DVD release, and I highly recommend you pick it up if you haven't got it. We have Pyramids of Mars. I know a lot of people see this as their favourite story of all time, and I can see why. It's brilliant historical, and Sutekh is one of the greatest Doctor Who villains of all time. Just a really menacing villain, and to see the Fourth Doctor sort of kneeling at him is just incredible. Just really great television, to be honest. Then we have The Android Invasion, which is a good story, but it's probably one of the weaker ones, but it's still a great story, and I really, really enjoy it. So then we have Sarah Jane's final classic Doctor Who story, and that is The Hand of Fear. It's alright, it's nothing special, but the departure for Sarah Jane is quite sad. But other than that, it's just a bit of an average story, really, nothing special. Then we've got The Deadly Assassin, no companion for the Doctor this time, but an absolutely brilliant story. The Master is back, and it's a brilliant story, just one of the best Doctor Who stories of all time. It's instantly a classic. I have got The Robots of Death as well, but I have actually lent that out to someone because I told them to watch it. Because yeah, I pretty much forced them to watch it. But yes, we've got the Talons of Wing Triang, which I've got the Target novelisation of, and yeah, it's a great story, really great script, and one of Tom Baker's best stories. And some people say it's the most overrated Doctor Who story of all time, which, to be honest, I can see why. It is brilliant, but I can see why people might find it a bit overrated. Then we've got The Horror of Fang Rock, which is an absolutely brilliant story, one of my favourites, well, one of my favourite Tom Baker stories. Terrence Dicks does a brilliant job of writing, well, the script is fantastic, and it's really atmospheric as well. If you like atmospheric stories, then I think you and the story are just a match made in heaven. It is absolutely brilliant. Underworld. Yeah. So we've got the Invasion of Time. Not a lot of people like this one. It's a really crap companion departure because she just decides to leave out of nowhere. But yeah, I quite like it. I think it's a pretty good Sontaran story, even though they don't appear like halfway through or something like that. I watched it last month, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. The Reboot Operation, it's okay, not great, well, it's alright, it's just average really. The Pirate Planet, oh god, yeah, I know it's written by Douglas Adams, but god, I think it's quite bad, really. The Stones of Blood, my favourite part of the Key to Time season. Really good story, really atmospheric and dark as well, great stuff. Then we've got the Androids of Tara, which, yeah, I quite like it. I think it's a pretty interesting little story, this one. The Power of Kroll. Now, this is actually a guilty pleasure of mine, because when I watched it, like years ago, I actually did enjoy it. I thought it was quite good. It's just, I know a lot of people hate this story a lot, but personally, I for some reason I just find enjoyment out of this. I don't know why. But yeah, I mean, I might have to rewatch it at some point. The Armageddon Factor, bit of a letdown, a bit disappointing really. Not one that I would rush to go back and see, to be honest. Destiny of the Daleks, probably my least favourite Dalek story. Yeah, I don't like it that much, and of course Mavellan's recently returned in Series 10 for a brief cameo, which was a bit weird and a bit odd. Then we've got the Horns of Naimon. I can't remember anything about this one. It's been a long time since I've watched it, because I remember watching like a poor quality version of it on Daily Motion like years ago, but I just haven't got around to watching it yet, well, again, so I can't remember much about that one. Sharda, of course they could finish this one for its production, so they got Tom Baker to narrate the missing bits. It's a great story, and yeah, it's a really light-hearted adventure, and one that I think needs a rewatch, because I've only watched it once, and that was when I bought it when it was released, so yeah, need to watch that one again. Then we've got The Keeper of Traken, which is signed by Sarah Sutton. One of my favourite Tom Baker stories, actually. I think it's a great story, and yeah, it features the return of the Master, and of course Anthony Ainley takes over the role, and yeah, he's not one of my favourite Masters, but yeah, I think he does a good job of portraying the Master. I think he's quite good, actually. Then we've got Legopolis, which is signed by Sarah Sutton again, and yeah, probably not the best departure for a Doctor, but I think the regeneration scene is really good, and I think that's why it's one of the main reasons why people like the story, because of the regeneration, I think. But yeah, so yeah, that's the Tom Baker years, and let's move on to the Peter Davison years, which I didn't have very many of, so yeah, let's move on to Peter Davison. So with Peter Davison now, we've got his first story, which is Castrovalva, which is signed by Janet Fielding. It's a bit average. I don't really like it that much, to be honest. Not the best debut for a Doctor, really. Peter Davison, he's not one of my favourites, but I do like a lot of his stories, and there are some in here which I don't own, but I have watched. But yeah, like the Five Doctors, for example. But yeah, I don't really like the story. And we've got Visitation, which is again signed by Janet Fielding. Yeah, I really like the story. It's actually one of my favourites. Really good historical. It's just, I think the direction for this one is really good, and I think the script is really good as well. Really enjoy it. Then we've got Earthshock, which is signed by Matthew Waterhouse, and yeah, great Sidemen story. And I can't imagine what it would have been like back in the day when you had no idea the Sidemen were going to return, or the fact that Adric was going to die. I can't imagine it. It must have been a hell of a shock. Probably why it's called Earthshock, because they went to great lengths to keeping the returning Sidemen and the death of Adric a complete secret, and it's still regarded as one of the best Sidemen stories, and it is brilliant, and I really enjoy it. Time Flight, God, yeah, one of the worst Doctor Who stories ever, and some people call it Time Shite as well, which is quite amusing. And yeah, what's weird about this DVD is that if you look on the back, Tegan and is highlighted, and the rest of the text is not. I don't know why that's there, but yeah, for some reason it's highlighted. I don't understand it. And then we've got Mordrin Undead, which I quite like this one actually. The first part of the Black Guardian trilogy. It's not bad. The Black Guardian trilogy isn't the best, but yeah, I got it for completionist reasons. And then we have probably my least favourite Doctor Who story of all time, which is Terminus. Oh god, I'm really tempted to do like a rant video on this one day, because I just utterly despise it. It's so dull and boring, and futuristic stories aren't my favourite type of Doctor Who story, and oh god, I really do not like the story at all. I think it's so bad and terrible, but yeah, not enjoyable at all. Enlightenment, don't really remember anything about this one. I've heard it's not good, but I need to watch it again because I just don't remember anything about it. Warriors of the Deep, underrated. Personally, I quite like it. I know it gets a lot of hate because the production isn't that good, and the Sea Devils don't look good. Don't look that good, but for some reason I really enjoy watching this one. It's a guilty pleasure of mine, to be honest. And we've got The Awakening, which I actually quite enjoy. I think it's quite a nice two-part story, and the Malice, I think, is quite a creepy and terrifying villain. Then we've got Resurrection of the Daleks, which is an absolute classic. Really enjoy it, although it's incredibly dark. And yeah, it's just one of those stories that I really enjoy, and I wouldn't say it was the best Dalek story, but it's one that I really enjoy. Then we've got The Caves of Androsani, which is the original release. I picked this up along with the original release of Spearhead. Yeah, it's regarded as one of the best Doctor Who stories of all time. I mean, there are some brilliant cliffhangers in it, especially the episode 3 cliffhanger, I think it is. But yeah, just seeing the Fifth Doctor being put out of his comfort zone, because obviously he's a really calm, gentle and quiet Doctor, and just to see him in a world surrounded by violence and total destruction is where the Fifth Doctor shines. And I really want to read Fear of the Dark, because I heard that really that book really does push the boundaries quite a bit, and so that's one of the reasons why I want to get it, because it just sounds really good. Then we have Caves of Androsani Special Edition. So yes, that's the Peter Davison era. So let's move on to the Colin Baker now. We have Attack of the Sidemen, which quite underrated. Not the best Sidemen story. There's a lot of continuity references from like left, right, and centre, but it's quite violent as well. And this story did get a lot of complaints back in the day. And to be honest, I think it's quite cool that. Obviously, Lytton the character of Lytton, you know, he does get his hands crushed, and that's quite violent. So if you're sort of squeamish, then I wouldn't really recommend you watch this story, because it is quite violent in places. Quite typical of the Colin Baker era, really. It is quite violent, and even Vengeance of Varus to an extent. This is one of my favourite Colin Baker stories, probably my favourite Colin Baker. Yeah, great story. One of the first ones I got, again. This is when I was starting to build my collection up, and I decided to get this one, and it was my first Colin Baker story. Well, actually, no. I tell a lie. This was my first Colin Baker story, and yeah, it's one that I really enjoy. It features the return of Patrick Troughton again, because obviously featured in the 5 Doctors, and he was in the 3 Doctors, and now he's in the 2 Doctors. So yeah, great story. I love it whenever they go on location, because it always it makes the story a lot better as well. And it's Robert Holmes' last proper story, really, because he did write a little bit for the Trial of a Time Lord, the Mysterious Planet. It's alright. The first, I mean, it's not a great story, but there's some good dialogue in it. The Trial of a Time Lord Mind Warp, probably the best part of the Trial of a Time Lord. I think. Terror of the Vervoids. It's an alright little run-around story, really. Yeah, I don't like Mel personally either. And we've got the Ultimate Foe, which is alright. It's okay, not the best. So starting off, we've got Time in the Rani, which is one of the worst stories in the show's history. Yeah, season 24 is really bad. So I mean, you're probably thinking, surely if you like it, Sylvester McCoy's your second favourite Doctor. I just love season 25 and 26, because season 24, oh dear, what a really bad season that is. Paradise Towers, quite a dark story, good concepts in there. It's just a shame the way, the execution of it is quite bad. But yeah, it's quite a dark McCoy story, this one. Delta and the Bannermen, which it's a really silly story. Oh god, it's yeah, really bad. Well, not bad, just I don't know how to describe Delta and the Bannermen, really. Then we've got Dragonfire, which yeah, it's this is probably the best story from that season, probably because Ace is in it, and yeah, it's not great, but it's the best in that season anyway. And here is where the proper McCoy comes in, and yeah, Remembrance of the Daleks, the special edition, and yeah, one of the best Dalek stories and one of my favourite Doctor Who stories. It's definitely in my top 10. Then we have the Happiness Patrol, which is a really dark story, and of course the main villain of the piece was inspired by Margaret Thatcher, but yeah, a great story, and the Candyman is ridiculous, but you gotta love him at the same time. The Greatest Show in the Galaxy, brilliant story, one of my favourite Sylvester McCoy's, and one of his best stories, I think. Definitely in my top 20 list of Doctor Who stories best Doctor Who stories of all time, in my personal opinion. Silver Nemesis, apparently the writer just made this up as he went along, and it's the 25th anniversary story, and as anniversary stories go, this is probably the worst one in the show's history. Yeah, and the Sidemen are just really weak in it as well. It's just a really crap story. Battlefield, it's a pretty good story. It's just a shame the ending is a bit off, because originally they were going to kill the Brigadier off, but they never did. But yeah, Jean Marsh is brilliant in this story. She's great. Then we've got the really controversial Ghostlight. It's controversial because of how complicated it is. Majority of fans don't like it, but I'm one of the fans. I'm probably in the minority that quite like it, because yeah, it's visually it looks excellent. They've done a really good job with the production, and it's all about Ace, and Ace is one of my favourite companions, and it's pretty much the equivalent of Longbarrow, except just a bit different. Written by the same author as well, Mark Platt. Yeah, it's a really clever story. It's one that you have to really sit down and concentrate and watch, because if you don't, then yeah, I think that's one of the problems. Like, people need to really concentrate, and I sort of understand it, but I just enjoy it for its production, really. Then we have what is possibly one of the darkest Doctor Who stories of all time, and this is when the sort of Cartnell master plan was sort of coming into play. And it's one of my favourite Doctor Who stories ever, and if you haven't seen it and you're a Sylvester McCoy fan, I strongly urge that you go out and buy it as soon as you can, because it really is one of the best Doctor Who stories ever. The Hemovores are fantastic, and Fenric is a really great villain, and it's just a really atmospheric story as well. Survival, of course, the writer for this, Rona Munro, is coming back for Series 10 this year, so I'm looking forward to her episode. But I find this one a bit overrated, because I think just because it's the last classic Doctor Who story, everyone gives it a load of hype. It's a good story, but I don't think it's as good as people make it out to be, really. Personally, anyway. Then we've got More Than 30 in the TARDIS, which is like a miscellaneous documentary celebrating the 30th anniversary. It's alright. It's a bit dated, but it's a nice little documentary. Then we've got I Was a Doctor Who Monster, which is pretty much like a VHS transfer. I bought this from the Galaxy 4 website a while ago. Well, actually, a friend got it for me. But yeah, presented by Sylvester McCoy. It pretty much has loads of interviews with all the actors who have played various different monsters. As you can see on the front cover, you got some actors playing the Daleks there, and you got interviews with them. And of course, there's a little picture of Sylvester McCoy there. So yeah, it's a nice documentary. It's a bit of fun, and it's quite interesting as well, because they are the unsung heroes of Doctor Who. These the actors in the costumes, they don't get enough praise, and it's a shame, because they are what made the programme, really. Well, they sort of made the programme. Then we have the movie, which as a story it's a bit crap, but personally the best thing about this, well, I enjoy this story, because the best thing about it, of course, is Paul McGann, who is the best thing about this film. And if you're a fan of Paul McGann, I mean, you've probably watched the movie. But yeah, I loved it when I first watched it, but I know there are a lot of people that don't like it, but I'm probably in the minority of the people that really, really enjoy it. So yeah, now let's move on to the revived series. So with the revived era now, we have Series 1, Volume 1, with Christopher Eccleston's first, well, only series. And we've got Rose, The End of the World, and The Unquiet Dead. 3 pretty good episodes. The weakest one, I'd say, is The End of the World. Then we've got Aliens of London, World War 3 and Dalek, which is Volume 2. And I think Dalek is brilliant, and a lot of people don't like the two-parter because of the farting aliens, but personally it's one of my favourites. It's like a guilty pleasure of mine. Then we have... this is actually the first... my first classic DVD was Genesis of the Daleks, but my first actual, Doctor Who DVD was this one, and it's Volume 3, and it contains The Long Game and Father's Day, Empty Child and the Doctor Dances. Brilliant episodes. The only bad one in that set, I'd say, is The Long Game, but it's not bad, it's just okay. Then we've got Boomtown, Bad Wolf and the Parting of the Ways. Boomtown's underrated, and I think it's quite good, and it's got one of my favourite, well, probably my favourite new series finale in it. Then we've got David Tennant now with Series 2 Volume 1, Christmas Invasion and New Earth. I love the Christmas Invasion, and New Earth is okay. I don't get why you get so much hate. Then we've got Tooth and Claw, School Reunion and The Girl in the Fireplace. 3 brilliant episodes, I love those. Then we've got Volume 3, Rise of the Sidemen, The Age of Steel, The Idiot's Lantern. Really like the two-parter. The Idiot's Lantern is average, really. Then Then we've got The Impossible Planet, The Satan Pit and Love of Monsters. I love that two-parter, and personally I quite like Love and Monsters. I know it's regarded as one of the worst stories of all time, but personally I think it's quite a good story. Then we've got Fear Her, Army of Ghosts and Doomsday. Fear Her is pretty bad. Army of Ghosts and Doomsday is pretty good. We've got The Runaway Bride, which is a pretty good Christmas special. Then we've got my second favourite series now from the revived series. We've got Smith and Jones, The Shakespeare Code and Gridlock. I love Smith and Jones. The Shakespeare Code is average, and Gridlock is pretty good, I think. Then we've got Series 3, Volume 2 with Daleks in Manhattan, Evolution of the Daleks and the Lazarus Experiment in 42. The Dalek two-parter in the series is a bit crap, but the Lazarus Experiment is pretty good. And the 42 is one of my favourite Doctor Who stories, surprisingly. Then we've got Human Nature, The Family of Blood and Blink. For some reason this DVD, it took me a while to get for some bizarre reason. Every time I went to the shops it wasn't there. But now, like a few years ago, I got it and I was really happy. So yeah, Human Nature, Family of Blood. I've read the Human Nature Virgin New Adventure, which is what the episode is based off. Which is really good, and I've reviewed it as well. And Blink is overrated, I think, but it's still a brilliant story. I wouldn't say it was the best, well, the second best story of all time. I would disagree with that. And we've got Utopia, The Sound of Drums, The Last of the Time Lords. Of course, John Sim is going to be returning soon. And personally, this is my second favourite new series finale. I think it's one of the best, I think. Then we've got Series 4 box set. Yeah, it's a good series, but it's not my personal favourite, really. I know a lot of people do love this series, but personally I don't like it that much. I mean, there are some good episodes in it, but it's not one of my favourites. And then we've got The Next Doctor, featuring David Morrissey. Underrated. A lot of people don't like this one, but personally I find some enjoyment out of it. Planet of the Dead, again, quite underrated, and it's actually quite a good story, really, if not a bit silly in some parts. Then we've got The Waters of Mars, probably David Tennant's best story that he did, and yeah, really, really good episode. Then we've got The End of Time Parts 1 and 2, which I love the first part, and for some reason I just don't like the second part as much, but I think it's a pretty good end for David Tennant, although I wouldn't really agree with his sort of last words. I know David Tennant didn't like it himself, but you know, it's a pretty good story. Then we've got Matt Smith now with Series 5 Volume 1, which contains The 11th Hour, Beast Below and Victory of the Daleks, which I think are all pretty decent episodes. The 11th Hour is probably the best one. Beast Below is a bit average, and Victory of the Daleks is a guilty pleasure of mine. And we've got, what is it? It's The Time of Angels, Flesh and Stone, and The Vampires of Venice. Really love that Angel two-parter. Vampires of Venice is a bit crap, I think. And we've got we've got Amy's Choice, The Hungry Earth and Cold Blood. Amy's Choice is a brilliant episode. I love that one. The Hungry Earth and Cold Blood. It's sort of ripped off the original Silurian story. It's alright, I guess. We've got Volume 4 now with Vincent and the Doctor, The Lodger, The Pandorica Opens and The Big Bang. Vincent and the Doctor is one of Matt Smith's best stories. The Lodger is a guilty pleasure of mine. It's quite light-hearted and comedic. Pandorica Opens and The Big Bang. It's a fairly quiet finale. Unlike a lot of the new series finales, this one's pretty quiet. Which is good, because I actually do quite like that finale, and Series 5 I really like in general. So then we've got what I think is probably the weakest series in the revived era. I do like the first half, but the latter half it sort of goes down the hill, really. I don't actually have Series 7 Part 2. I don't know why, but I'll try and get it at some point. We've got Series 7 Part 1 Volume 1, and that is Asylum of the Daleks, Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, and A Town Called Mercy. Asylum of the Daleks I think is a bit crap. Dinosaurs on a Spaceship I think it's pretty, alright, I guess. And The Town Called Mercy, I think, is really good. Really good historical story, that one. Then we've got The Power of 3 and The Angels Take Manhattan. Two pretty average episodes, really. Power of 3 is a bit boring, I think. Then we've got the 50th anniversary special, which is Day of the Doctor. Yeah, pretty decent special. Really enjoyed it. It's pretty much a new series celebration, really. Most of it, anyway. But yeah, John Hurt is great in it, and of course he sadly passed away. So yeah, I will give this a rewatch. As paying tribute to John Hurt. But yeah, he's great in it, and Davison and Matt Smith are great together. It's a really great special, that. Then we've got the sort of 50th anniversary collection sort of box set. I won't read out what's on there, but you can pause it there. Hopefully the camera quality is decent enough so you can pick it up. But yeah, it's a limited edition box set. I've seen this go for ridiculous prices on eBay now. It's really sought after, because I got this when it first came out, so I was quite lucky in that sense. And we've got Series 8 on Blu-ray. This is my only Doctor Who Blu-ray. I'm going to get Series 9 at some point on Blu-ray as well. And I'll probably get Series 10 on Blu-ray when the full box set comes out. So yeah, I really enjoyed this series. A couple of duff stories, but I think Peter Capaldi is one of my favourite Doctors, and yeah, he's my joint favourite new series Doctor with Christopher Eccleston. So yeah, then we've got the spin-offs now with the Sarah Jane Adventures. The complete first series, as you can see, it's a little bit battered because that's why it's just how I've watched it so many times when I was younger. Yeah, great children's show. And it's sad that Elizabeth Sladen is no longer with us. It's heartbreaking, really. Then we've got the second series, which I think is a pretty good series. I quite like the Sontaran story in it. And yeah, I don't have the other series because I just haven't got them yet. I might get them at some point, but who knows. Then we've got the Torchwood Series 1 to 3 box set. I still need to get Miracle Day. I don't know when I'll get it, but hopefully I'll get it soon. Yeah, I absolutely love Torchwood. I think my favourite series is Children of Earth. That was a brilliant piece of television, and yeah, just the best Torchwood series in my opinion. And I've actually met Yanto Jones, played by Gareth David Lloyd. I've got his autograph as well, which is pretty cool. And I'm meeting John Barrowman soon, which is going to be absolutely fantastic. Or I don't know when this video is going to be uploaded, but yeah, I probably would have met him by then. But yeah, I can't wait for that. And yeah, so that is pretty much my Doctor Who DVD collection. I hope you enjoyed it. It's been quite a long video. Probably it is my longest video I've ever done, because there's just so much to cover. So yes, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and I've reviewed quite a lot of DVDs on this collection, so I've got a playlist, and if you want to check that out, please do. So thank you for watching, and goodbye.